Hey, this is Derrik Jordan. Welcome to the World Fusion Show, where we bring you the leading innovators in world fusion music. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Guy Mendilow, who's a composer, a band leader, and multi-instrumentalist, and he has a very strong interest in Sephardic music. Welcome, Guy Mendilow, to the World Fusion Show.
Well, thank you so much, Derrik. It's a pleasure to be here.
So glad you could join us today. It's really great, and I've been looking forward to this for a long time because the level of your artistry as a musician and also in your collaborations, it's really fantastic, and I'm sure our audience is going to really appreciate it. So I just wanted to start by asking you how you got your, beginning in music. What inspired you to get going?
I have always loved music, and it's been probably the single constant in my life when languages changed and nationalities changed and continents changed. Music, and in particular the piano and singing with people, has been kind of a bedrock, starting with the family and extending all the way up from there to just about everything that I do now.
Yeah. So you early on, you were part of a choir, you told me, traveling, and you traveled around with a choir based in Princeton, New Jersey. Want to tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I'm blessed in so many ways. And a good fortune that came early on was the opportunity to sing with the American Boy Choir School, which was I'm not sure if it's a school with a choir or a choir with a school. We did a lot of our academics on a tour bus and would be on month-long tours all over the continental United States and abroad, and performing in tiny community centers and churches all the way to Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center and Boston Symphony Hall. There were two things about that were really remarkable and that have lasted with me. One is just the feeling of being in music like that. When you're part of a choir, you're swimming in harmony, and there's nothing quite like it. And that has stayed all the way to today. But also, the adults who believed in us and who saw that a group of teenagers who others would be quick to write off could rise up to the challenge and do extraordinary things if they scaffolded them well, and if they supported us well. And that's been an inspiration.
It's great. So you also spent time in Israel and South Africa. How did that inform your musical tastes and interests?
I can't tease that apart because that's a fabric of the story of me, and the values that come from upbringing in different places, but in particular with my family. It's too close to me to tease that apart. Although I can name some things, I can say that wherever we were, music was a common thread, and even living in apartheid South Africa, we became involved in a community that. At the time was doing some radical work, and some of that radical work took place through music and the power of music to bring people together and to connect people across pretty massive divides.
Yeah. So you are a Jersey boy like me. I grew up in Jersey as well, and but you also now you're living in Boston, and that's where we're talking to you today via Skype. But you went to college and you studied sitar and Hindustani music in college at Oberlin. Although you're not currently playing the sitar regularly. So what was that like with that world music experience?
Oberlin was my undergrad, and I wound up doing later a master's in music in Delker's education. But the experience with the sitar in particular was really it was a plunge into a rigorous type of practice that was much more than musical. The type of practice that we were engaged in really, the nexus was music, but it affected just about every area of our lives. It was an intense relationship with the teacher, Hasu Patel, one of the few leading female sitarists. especially in the United States, kind of a bold visionary and a radical in her own quiet way. It was an experience that really opened my ideas about what the languages of music could even encompass. I mean, there is really no correlate for tala in Western music. And the raga structure itself is something that I think it's possible to learn a tremendous amount from. So even though the sitar is no longer an instrument that I play, I think that studying this language and immersing myself in this language was an informative experience that lasts through to today.
That's great. So I would love to go to our first video, which is a really remarkable collaboration that you've been doing with a sand painter. So can you tell me just quickly about that connection with her?
Sure, yeah. The video that we're going to watch is Act 2, Scene 1 from a show called The Forgotten Kingdom, which is a travelogue through the final days of the Ottoman Empire, as glimpsed through songs and stories of Ottoman Sephardic Jews living in places like Salonika and Sarajevo. And this is a show which involves sand animation from Xenia Simonova, who some of your audience members may recall from America's Got Talent and America's Got Talent, The Champion. She won Ukraine's Got Talent, all the kind of the Got Talent franchise. This is a show which it's an evening length production in which there's sand animation that follows a live performance of a score and a script.
All right, let's go to the video right now. We are back with Guy Mendilow. That's just fantastic. So you are very interested in this, in the subject of racial equity. So I wanted just to ask you, how does that inform your music and how you present that?
I promise to answer your question, but before I do, let me just say that I don't get to do what I do on my own. And so I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the artists who were part of video and all that I do, that's an arrangement that was made for the show The Forgotten Kingdom by former violinist Tomoko Omura. And along with the Xenia Simonova with the sand animation, we hear the vocals of Sofia Tosello. We have Chris Baum on the violin, Andy Bergman on woodwind, Tara Krantisi on percussion, Keita Ogawa on percussion, and Michael Rivard on bass. And on that recording, I play the berimbau and sing. In terms of equity, so much of what I do really stems from my grandparents and from my family. I can take credit for very little, but they were lifelong champions of equity and inclusion in their various ways. They were not here in the United States, and the struggles that they faced were different. But I think that if they were in the United States, then of primary concern to them right now would be these divisions of race. And the tracing and the understanding of historical racial divides. And I think that the work that I do, I on the one hand, try to take a critical self-examination to trace out my own story as an immigrant in this country and how that was formed by larger structures and the privilege and power that I have inherited. And on the other hand, to try to couch that in a historical understanding. And that's really where so much of this art lies, is in looking at historical moments that act as a springboard for asking ourselves questions today and asking myself questions today.
That's great. Thank you, Guy. I would love to go to our next video, which is another example of your work with the sand painter. Do you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, this is also Act 2 from the show. It's funny because Act 2 is the darker half. This is based on a true story from my family about a World War I hero who was betrayed by a nation whose fear really turned its back on everything for which he had fought and so many like him had fought.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the video right now. We are back with Guy Mendilow. It's just great stuff, Guy. Really, really beautiful things that you're doing, the way you're combining the music and this beautiful visual concept, active visual live, sand painting. I just love it. So you've been a music teacher also since the mid-90s, and I know that's a very important part of your work. Do you want to say something about what that means to you?
Yeah, I got into music education from an activist point of view. I'd been coming from a study of crisis and environmental failure and looking at questions of leadership and starting to ask myself, what are the ingredients of leadership and how do you cause that? And long story short, I made my way into Delco's education, which is a dynamic way of teaching musicianship through purposeful movement in a social atmosphere, which is joy-based and very rich in improvisation. And that has been transformative both as a teacher and as someone who is interested in giving tools to people to be able to follow musical conversations, because in the end, the ability to follow a musical conversation is what allows us to connect with one another through music. But it's also been transformative for me as a musician, and just watching my own composition and my own playing and my own improvisation just come to life in ways that I don't think that I could have imagined as a result of Delco's education. And I consider myself a student in so many ways and a lifelong student in so many ways. My entry into Delco's came in 2005. And right now I'm wrapping up a higher level degree in the field. And it continues to be an inspiration.
Well, I agree with you. I've been a music teacher for many years, and the best teacher is usually the best student as well. So we learn more from our students usually than they learn from us. But hey, that's just how it goes. Now I want to go to our third video, which is a recording video of you playing with your band. It's called A Modern Man. And of course, I love your band. It's fantastic. So I would like to just go straight to the video, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All right, let's do that. we are back. So, Guy, that's what a great band you've got there. Really fantastic people. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today on the World Fusion Show. It's been great to have you and have you share your music and your vision for your music. And now, actually, we're going to go to the part of the show that a lot of our audience loves the most, which is where you and I get to play together through the magic of the internet. So looking forward to doing that as well. Thank you again.
Thank you, Derrik. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right, very good. Hey, this is Derrik Jordan. Thank you for joining us today on the World Fusion Show. It's been great to have you. And, you know, we've got lots more fantastic shows coming. And I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Mackenzie Family, Charitable Trust, Dean's Beans, Chris Pratt, Nancy Feinberg, and Ron Dans for their generous support. And hey, follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and, you know, share with your friends. And remember, as we always say, think globally, listen locally, and support independent music.